Hey team, welcome to another episode of Ortho Out Loud. I'm your host and teammate Scott McKay. Today's episode is all about nutrition, how to fuel your body for 5K training, what role nutrition plays in injury prevention and performance, and debunking myths about supplements for beginner runners. Joining me to help dissect this topic is one of our own sports medicine specialists, Dr. Timothy Petsche, and local registered dietitian and owner of MEDFITNESS, Richard Wolff. Let's start with Dr. Petsche. Can you tell us a little bit about your role here at Fox Valley Orthopedics and personal interest in nutrition?
Sure, Scott. I am an orthopedic surgeon with subspecialization in sports medicine, and I take care of many local injured athletes. I'm the volunteer team physician at Batavia High School, St. Charles East and St. Charles North High School, and Burlington Central High School. So I frequently am taking care of the athletes from those local high schools.
Thank you for helping out all of our local students. It's really, really important.
It's my pleasure.
Now, Richard, let's go over to you. We are so happy to have you here and speaking with us today, truly. Give our audience a peek into who you are and what you do.
Sure. I'm the owner and founder of MEDFITNESS. That's a strength train studio in St. Charles. We started there in 2001, and we really specialize in caring for adults between 50 and 90 who need strength training to stay functional, healthy, independent. All our workouts are supervised, so time efficient, less than 30 minutes twice a week.
So something very doable for our community and something very important to keep them healthy as well.
Yep.
Excellent. So now before we get into some of the technical things that we're going to be talking about today, I did bring some things I'd like to show you both and kind of get an idea if these are things that we should be sharing with our community or if these are maybe no-goes. So let me just pull out some things. I figure that this is one of our best training nutrition. It's flaming hot, so I figured the calories can burn faster with this. Is this something like these cheese curls would be a great idea for our community or maybe not for our people training?
Well, for long-term health and fitness, I'm really not in favor of highly processed, high sugar content, carbohydrates without a whole lot of nutritional value. For a once-in-a-while occasional treat, sure, but it's something that you're trying to fuel your body with for long-term health, I can't really say that I recommend it.
So, Richard, would you say like 12 handfuls of this at a time or
Maybe
less?
20, 20 handfuls. I would agree with the doctor. I mean, it's when you think about yes or no to certain foods, you want to look at the context of the diet, and that's not a pillar of something you would eat day in and day out. So, but it could be a small amount here and there. I mean, I'm sure if you crack that open now, I would enjoy them, but it's not a normal part of my diet.
Okay, maybe there's something different I might have in here that would work. Here I've got this bowl of bananas, apples, and oranges. Would this be something more on that pillar that you would consider?
I would definitely recommend the fruit and vegetable category. It's in the really can't eat too much of it unless you eat it exclusively, like you're a fruitarian and you never eat any protein or fat, but you can't really go wrong with fruit. I, for myself and my family, tried to shop and buy organic because I don't like the herbicides and pesticides and mass-produced fruits and vegetables. I usually, with a thing like an apple, like to wash it to get the herbicides and pesticides off, but yeah, you can't go wrong with fruit. Great idea.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we would take what we call a more is better approach. When you think about what that other food you just held up there, instead of telling someone what not to do, if I just get them eating more of these foods, it displaces those other foods and gets a ton of nutrients along the way. So, absolutely.
Excellent, thank you. Is it okay if I pull out some others to maybe get an idea of how I should be changing my diet?
Yeah, this is fun.
I have something here that might be a little similar to what we had out before, and I'm just wondering if this would be a good replacement for those cheese corn curls, a dried lentil snack.
So there's some controversy in the field of nutrition science. Is it the processing that's bad for the food that makes it bad for the human, or is the content of the processed food? So here you have lentils, and lentils are in the legume category, and you really can't find a better protein for the human body than a plant protein, and even better, it's a legume protein. So here you have something with protein that isn't 100% carbs, like the flaming hot Cheetos. So this is clearly better. And it's baked, so there isn't any concern about potential harmful chemicals in the seed oil and carcinogens. So this is definitely in the category of better, but we don't really have the quality data to definitively say, is this a great idea or not? It's just sort of in the, probably can't really say it's the best, because it'd be better if you just ate some lentil beans without the processing. But it's a way better snack than the flaming hot Cheetos. That's my take on current science.
I would agree. I mean, the science, what Dr. said, is accurate. I mean, it's not robust. We can't say, hey, look at all this evidence saying that when you eat those foods, you do better. Now, is it a little upgrade? Yes, it's an upgrade. So good that it's an upgrade, but still should probably be a small part, an overall healthy diet focusing on whole foods. So.
Okay, and I've always been told color is better, so the more color, the better, as far as our foods are concerned. Would you agree with that, or no?
You're cracking me up. Richard, why don't you go first?
Well,
Because I've got these colorful M&Ms here, and I just thought maybe...
Well, now, when you're talking about M&Ms, a whole nother category of foods there. My weakness is sweets, but again, I have to be careful to have small quantities strategically. But yeah, those are, of course, delicious, but less is more, right?
Yes, definitely with sweets, less is more. We really want to try to do our best to avoid refined carbs and minimize our glucose spikes. You want to try and keep a steady rate of glucose in your system if you want to remain healthy, particularly in the aging individuals or older athletes, which are common most of Richard's clients. It sounds like. I'm sure you're joking about the color content, but in natural foods that occur in nature, berries and other vegetables that are bright with color, they have these compounds called flavonoids, which are very potent and beneficial chemicals that are good for you. But really what we want to be focusing on, Scott, is the fundamentals of nutrition. You want to eat real food, okay? Super important. And if it's real and exists in Mother Nature, then you can look for the fine-tuning. Is it bright and colorful? Then it's probably better for you.
I think I brought a couple things that might be a little bit better in that regard, like a red pepper or this deep green spinach. Would that be like better color maybe than the M&Ms?
Absolutely, yeah. There's some very good evidence that eating foods like that can really stave off some diseases in aging, things like macular degeneration, Alzheimer's disease, and keeping our athletes that want to do things like run a 5K. These kind of foods are a brilliant move.
Okay, and then you had mentioned proteins earlier, and I was just wondering if these are another source of proteins that maybe would be beneficial.
Yeah, sure. Nuts and seeds, yeah. So lightly salted, I mean, that's good. Not too much salt. A little bit of salt is fine, but certainly it's a whole food. It has not been altered from its original state for the most part, or we call that minimally processed. But yeah, that could be a part of a diet.
I would say this is an essential part of the diet. Most Americans don't get enough protein, and nuts are a phenomenal source of protein. And I grew up in an era back in the 80s. They used to tell us, they meaning the media, their interpretation of science, was that there's too much fat in nuts and you shouldn't eat them because everyone needs to eat a low-fat diet, which is, unless you're told to eat a low-fat diet by your doctor, it's kind of crazy. You should eat a lot of nuts. They're extremely good for you. Plant protein is the ideal protein that there is. That's how we evolved. When the meteorite came and wiped out the dinosaurs and the tiny little mammals crawled out of their holes in the ground and lived and evolved eventually into other animals and us, we evolved on eating that stuff. We evolved on seeds and legumes, and there's nothing that's more natural for us and our bodies than plant protein. And the least processed is a bag of nuts with a little bit of salt. And unless you're an old person who's had cardiovascular disease, salt is fine.
Excellent. That's some excellent information.
If you're living an active life, injuries can happen. When they do, skip the hassle of waiting for an appointment. Ortho First offers walk-in orthopedic care from expert doctors who treat athletes, kids, weekend warriors, and everyone in between. With evening hours and convenient locations, Ortho First gets you back on track quickly and affordably. Check out locations and hours at fvortho.com.
I just have one more thing I want to pull out of my magic bag here. This is a protein bar, and so we talked about processed foods, we talked about proteins being super important, and I'd like to get the take from both of you on what you think about protein bars and bar nutrition, etc.
I think a lot of folks in today's world, they look at foods like that and they sort of categorize them as sort of a superfood. It's protein, it's good for my muscles, all these other things. It really is still a processed food that has been modified significantly. Are there some nutrients in there? Yes. Can you find those nutrients elsewhere with a little more bang for your buck in terms of a health standpoint? Yeah. So I think if you're not eating a cheeseburger and maybe you have a nutrition bar as a protein source, you might be upgrading a little bit. But in the totality of things, that's something that we would still look at strategically in smaller quantities, not as a big pillar in your diet. I'm eating 3 protein bars every day as a to-do. So when you just look at it cautiously, it's not a superfood, small, moderate quantities. Yeah.
I completely agree with Richard. Most protein bars, unfortunately, are loaded with refined carbohydrates. They put sugar in it to make it palatable. And many of them you'll see have 6, 8, even 10 grams or more of added sugar. So I don't eat them at all ever. I would way rather have a handful of nuts and a piece of fruit, and I can consume it just as quickly. It's equally not going to perish in my backpack or in my lunch bag, readily accessible, a lot more healthy, maybe not as cool. Maybe my kids don't agree with me because it doesn't taste as good, but that's me.
Well, I think that's a sure sign that it's a good choice then. You both have taught me so much already. How has your background, education contributed to learning so much about nutrition?
Sure, I'll go first. So I did my orthopedic surgery residency training downtown Chicago. I trained, the home hospital was University of Illinois Hospital at Chicago, and we had 6 other affiliated hospitals that were all in the downtown area. And I saw a tremendous amount of overnourishment and obesity, while people at the same time were malnourished. They weren't getting adequate intake of fruits and vegetables, and hence frequently lacked appropriate minerals and vitamins, such that we saw things I thought I'd never see, from very serious vitamin D deficiencies and osteomalacia, and young children breaking bones from routine injuries that shouldn't break a bone. I'm not talking about the kid falling off the top of the swing set. I'm talking about a kid at walking speed falling down and breaking a hip, and asking the child, how fast were you running? I wasn't running, doctor. I was walking. You fell and broke your hip walking? I did. And, well, what do you eat? What's your usual breakfast? I don't eat breakfast. Well, what do you eat for lunch? Usually 2 Pop-Tarts. Really? What does your family eat for dinner? Well, Mom and Dad get their own dinner, but I usually just eat some cookies and some ice cream. So you're eating a Pop-Tart, some cookies and ice cream, and that's your nutrition? Pretty much. So we tested that guy's vitamin D level, and it was dangerously low. He met the criteria for osteomalacia, which is a disease that I thought was eliminated hundreds of years ago when they put vitamin D in the milk. But a lot of people these days don't drink milk, so vitamin D deficiency is very, very common. So I saw this so frequently in my training, I did my own research and read some books on nutrition, and I currently try to read medical journal articles on nutrition and how it will affect healing. And there's plenty of studies now on low vitamin D and how supplementation can aid the healing process, how it can avoid many of the tendon diseases my patients come to see me for, and how it can help prevent recurrent shoulder dislocations or patella dislocations if people aren't going to consume enough vitamin D naturally through natural sources like wild salmon or wild mushrooms. If you can't get it that way, or from milk and cheese and dairy, you should supplement. So that's the background. It's very pertinent to the orthopedic patient, very pertinent to the orthopedic sports medicine patient. So I've educated myself through reading and keeping current with orthopedic medical journals.
And Richard, I mean, your whole life is nutrition.
Yeah, it is. I actually was on the What's Happening in St. Charles podcast about a month ago, and they said, so tell us when you got interested. So I asked them, does birth count? As early as I can remember, myself and my brothers were just obsessed with fitness. I was obsessed with nutrition for some reason. So early on, I was telling my Mom, these are the foods I need at the supermarket. I'm just surprised she never killed me because I'm adding to her already busy to-do list with 5 kids. So very early on, and trying to be strategic, and as a kid growing up in the 70s, I got it in my head that I shouldn't be drinking pop. I don't know where I got the idea, but it was a good idea. So I avoided all soda, period, for over a decade, which is probably a miracle in the 70s. But that led to my dad seeing that, and he came to me and said, hey, Richard, you could go to school and study nutrition. And for some reason, I never thought of doing it. I don't know what was wrong with me, but I remember the moment it happened. I'm in the kitchen talking to him, and he said, I talked to the dietitian at the hospital the other day. My dad's a physical therapist. I said, here's what you got to do to be a dietitian. I thought, Dad, this is awesome. So that led to taking that course, that trajectory, and then becoming a nutrition professional. It's been a pillar in my career. Now, my business, of course, is strength training, and we do some nutrition teaching. I write some articles and some speaking. When you think about healthy lifestyles, you can't say I want to be healthy. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to ignore everything I eat, right? So these things go together: sleep, stress management, healthy diet, etc., exercise. So I've been fortunate to be working in an industry that, at a very early age, I was just bonkers about lifting weights and eating sensibly, and now professionally it's a real gift. So,
And I'm so proud of you for listening to your father. I think that was a good life choice,
right.
for sure.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I would like to go into a little bit about how our food choices affect our orthopedic health, our training, our injury prevention, and recovery as well. So how do our food choices affect those types of things, like specifically for orthopedic injuries and recovery and training?
Well, from what I see from a orthopedic clinician standpoint, what I see people making the biggest mistakes, the older folks don't have an appreciation or knowledge or understanding that as we age, we need to eat more protein than when we were younger to maintain lean muscle mass. So the older folks aren't consuming enough protein and too much carbs. The younger people are eating too much junk food and fast food, and they're not getting enough natural foods, things that occur in nature. That's what I see the most common to stereotype from my patients. And they all think they're eating healthy, but they don't really have the knowledge. And it's very difficult in our society with the pressures in food availability. Every week, I can't go a week without seeing donuts in a break room or cake and candies in a snack area at work. I know it's the same wherever anybody works. The food that you don't need, that you might want because it tastes like a fruit and it fools your brain by having more sugar than a fruit or a vegetable, they're everywhere. And I can't drive to work or back home from work without seeing it advertised. So kind of a difficult to avoid subject.
Yeah.
I would agree with that protein side of it. I mean, we deal with adults who are often sarcopenic. They've got very little lean body mass. That's affecting their bone health. It's affecting their functional capacity, their risk of falling. So just getting in adequate protein, which, as Doctor said, we now have to offset. We describe this as anabolic resistance. Your body doesn't process protein as efficiently as you age as it did when we were younger. So we need a little more, and to offset that loss of efficiency. And if you're not doing that and you're eating the average American diet, which is not so good, you're going to have some gaps and you're going to lose muscle faster. Your bones are going to demineralize at an accelerated rate. So it's unfortunate, but right, we need some easy wins can really resolve that if people are informed and have some to-dos to execute on.
Looking for a smarter way to train? At MedFitness, strength isn't just a goal, it's the foundation for a stronger, healthier, and more resilient you. MedFitness specializes in efficient, evidence-based strength training with personalized workouts led by expert trainers in a small group setting. In just 25 minutes twice a week, you'll train your entire body under the guidance of a professional who knows how to keep it safe and effective. Whether you're recovering, training, or simply trying to feel your best, MedFitness is a place where science meets strength. To learn more, visit medfitnessprogram.com and stick around to hear more from MedFitness founder Richard Wolff on the importance of strength training as we age and what to eat to best fuel your activities.
This is so good for general knowledge, for general recovery. I'm wondering, for people going into training for a 5K or for any sport really, what are some things that people should look out for?
Well, in terms of what to look out for falling for marketing. Too many people think they can train and then recover quicker and better if they eat that sugar-filled protein bar or the sugar-filled sports nutrition drink. The body doesn't really need that. What the body needs is real food and water. So it doesn't matter if you have a volleyball tournament weekend with 7 games in a weekend, or a soccer tournament with up to 5 games, or lacrosse, hockey, basketball, all the things that have multiple games. In between, eat real food and drink water. That's what you need. Don't fall into the marketing ploys of big business. It's pretty simple. Eat real foods, things that exist in nature, and drink water, and you'll recover better and feel healthier and be better for your next competition, event, or whatever it is.
And Richard, what would you say
I mean, I would agree.
as far as
if you're healthy, you can do a lot. I mean, you can compete, you can train. I train very, very hard when I strength train. I don't have to overthink what I'm eating beforehand. My diet is healthy consistently. I just go in. If I'm thirsty, I have some water, and I hit it. I train hard. If I'm out active, I make sure I've got fluids with me and so on, but I'm not saying, oh, geez, I need this sports pre-walk, pre-jog, pre-bike, pre-do anything product. It's unnecessary, but it is, like the doctor says, it's powerful, it's big marketing. We call it big food, and these guys have got $1 billion to spend on marketing, and they do it well. Healthy people have the capacity to do what they want and what they need to do at any given time. So, now, do I use a supplement? I happen to use a plant-based supplement in the morning with some berries and fruit and ice and a cauliflower. I blend it up. It's a quick, easy grab for me. But it's a thoughtful, strategic choice of how to get some quality protein at that time of the day when I'm usually rushing and busy. And that's a piece of my diet. It's not the whole thing of what I eat, but it's a piece of my diet. So I think we don't want to overthink the need for supplementation and pre-event supplementation and during and so on. I mean, if you're an ultra-endurance athlete, could you benefit from some carbohydrates during an ultra-endurance event? Sure, yeah, that's a simple, easy decision, but that's not who we're dealing with. We're not dealing with people trying to qualify for Olympic time trials here. So everyday people just need to focus on their general health and then go do what they want to do.
That answer's awesome.
And then as far as making certain we get the protein we need in our bodies, what numbers, or is there like a grams we should be looking for, or maybe a size?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you look at the sports nutrition literature today, it would suggest for adults anywhere between 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of ideal body weight. So if you're an average American and you weigh 250 pounds, you need to not use your actual body weight to make that recommendation. So I'd say let's scale that back a little bit and see what do you feel is a healthy weight for you, just to get closer to supporting lean mass. If you've got an extra 20 kilos of body fat, I don't want to base protein requirements on the extra body fat. So generally speaking, 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of ideal body weight. So for me, I would use at 185 pounds, I would use my actual body weight. So for me, it's about 130 grams a day to really optimize my resistance training benefits and just to prevent muscle loss and muscle maintenance now that I'm 61. So I'm in that bucket of people who are developing anabolic resistance, but in that range roughly. So.
And then are there other nutrients or things that we should be adding to that protein? Or are we going to be getting that no matter what anyways?
Yeah, I mean, the common nutrients, like the doctor was saying, vitamin D deficiency is common. Some of the other B vitamins, folic acid, potassium, magnesium is a frequent one. I mean, there's a handful of micronutrients that we tend to be deficient in. So if you said, hey, my diet isn't perfect, maybe I should take a well-formulated multivitamin mineral as an adjunct to what I'm trying to accomplish here. That's reasonable to do that with food to enhance absorption, but you typically don't need to go way out of your way to do mega doses of specific nutrients. Again, unless you're under medical care and the doctor says, hey, here's what we need for this to treat that, etc. But just general nutrients that are deficient and are hard to get if I'm just still kind of improving my diet. I'm not quite there yet, so.
I want to back up to that other question, mistakes that we often see made.
Mm-hmm.
Too often people get in a rut, the picky eater problem. Somebody who says, oh yeah, I love fruit. I just can eat bananas and apples all day. But that's all they eat. So that's not good. You need a variety of things to avoid an individual B6 deficiency or B12 deficiency. And those can be very serious. The other mistake that I see a lot, particularly among the high school athletes, is dilutional hyponatremia, which is they drink so much water while they're sweating it out playing an intense sport like football in the early fall where it's really hot. And they don't eat much because they're nervous, and they don't get a whole lot of electrolytes because they didn't eat all day because of their nerves. And they're playing football, they're sweating, and they're just pounding the water. And coaches yelling at them, stay hydrated, stay hydrated. They're drinking water, they're sweating out all their electrolytes. The next thing you know, their sodium is so low, they're cramping up. It's not even the second half yet, first half, and guys are getting cramps because they didn't do what Richard said, eat healthy throughout the day, drink a healthy amount of water throughout the day, and then go compete, and you'll be fine, and those cramps won't happen. So those are some of the biggest mistakes that came to my mind after that last question.
Yeah, and it sort of sounds like if you are more consistent with what you're doing throughout the day, you don't have to focus so much about what you're doing right before your performance or even after, maybe.
Right.
That's totally correct, yeah. So for me and my lifestyle, I try to follow the Mediterranean diet. I view it kind of like the Lord of the Rings, you know, the one ring that rules them all, the one diet that rules them all is the Mediterranean diet. And it's pretty simple. It's just eat real food, mostly plants. People have described it as other nutritionists and medical authors eating only around the edges of the grocery store. So you go into the produce section and you find right next to the produce section the other healthy foods. The deli, the seafood section, where it's real food, like a real fish that really grew in the ocean. That's good for you, okay? Other meats are plenty good for you if they're real, not the super processed beef jerky or ultra processed flamin' hot chicken nugget or whatever, like a real piece of chicken that you cook yourself. That's great nutrition, and eat that kind of food and avoid the stuff in the middle of the store that's ultra processed and loaded with carbs and loaded with sugar and shelf stable for 5 years. That's the stuff you want to try to minimize. And then you don't really have to worry so much, what do I do pre-exercise? What do I do post-exercise? Just try to eat healthy consistently with good variety and not too much. Overconsumption is the biggest problem there is. Not too much.
And then as far as building up muscle support and endurance for injury prevention, how would you proceed with that?
That might be more Richard than me.
Well, I think if you're going to do a race, of course, you have to run. Obviously, you got to run. If you're going to do a race, you have to do your training with your running. As a smart adjunct to that, and as a smart adjunct to your lifestyle period, resistance exercise, strength training, we know, is just one of the types of exercise we should be doing all the time, period. We didn't know that when we were kids growing up. I mean, we lifted weights, we thought it was cool, but my dad, the physical therapist, was saying, guys, have fun with that. That really doesn't really matter. Your muscles don't matter. Well, now we know they do matter in a very big way. So smart, full body strength training. Our approach is to train safely, but train intensely, short periods of time, rest several days, come back, do it again. So it's not a high volume approach, and that is an easy way to complement running or any sport. I mean, strength, force production matters. If you're stronger, you can run faster. If you're weaker, you can't run faster. So paying attention to your muscles from an exercise standpoint is a pillar from a health habit standpoint, and just doing what you need to do to support that. So I think simpler is better. Just like the doctor says, you know, whole foods, real foods that came from the ground that are alive before we eat them, you know, that's what we should eat. Strength training does not need to be complicated. It can be simple, it can be high effort, and it can be incredibly safe, and it can enrich 9 million other activities, one of them being sports performance. So,
I like to tell people 2 things are proven in sports medicine to prevent injuries. These are very solidly backed by science. Number 1 is skill. The more you practice, the better you get at your sport, the less likely you are to get injured. Every sport that's ever been studied, that's true. The second one is strength training. The stronger you are, the less likely you are to get hurt. And I don't care what your sport is. If you're a professional ballet dancer or a recreational soccer player, the stronger and more skilled you are, the less often you get hurt.
You both have given us so much great information. I'm curious what a day in the life looks like for you both as far as nutrition and how you get that 130 grams in a daily basis. So, Richard, if you could start us out and just give me a good idea of how we do that.
Well, I talked about that protein supplement in the morning with berries, cauliflower, a banana. I might sprinkle a little bit of wheat germ in there as well. But that's blended up. It's thick, it's filling. I drink that at home before I head out. And that can be 40 to 50 grams of protein in one serving. Now, we're not going to get into this today, but the conventional wisdom was that once I go over 30, I'm wasting my protein. We now see that that's not the case. And that's still a learning curve for nutrition scientists. But it appears as though I can consume a larger meal of protein and still see muscle protein since it's elevated for hours afterwards. We used to think you might cap it out at 30, 35, 40 grams, and we now see that a higher feeding of protein can still be beneficial over a longer time period in terms of muscle turnover. So I'm getting a good dose in the morning. The rest of my diet is very much what the doctor mentioned, which is just a mixture of animal and plant-based protein sources. I mean, I like peanut butter. I like nuts. We do fish a lot. We do poultry. We'll have some red meat here and there. My wife's a great cook, so we're having a a robust plant-based dinner or plant-predominant dinner in the evening with some animal protein as well. So now I might not hit that 130 every day, but I was saying earlier that this isn't all or nothing. So we can upregulate that muscle protein synthesis. Even if I get to 118, it's not like because I didn't get to 130, I got nothing. So I'm benefiting as protein intake is going up above the recommended dietary allowance, and I'm striving to get close to that ceiling as often as I can. So, yeah.
Dr. Petsche?
Okay, same question. A day in my life of trying to stay fit, healthy, and get adequate protein and nutrients. Keep in mind that I am an extremely busy orthopedic surgeon, and a lot of what I do is because I have short windows of time to get the nutrition into me that's healthy and not going to slow me down. So on a weekday, I will start out with a bowl of whole milk yogurt. I prefer the Fage, F-A-G-E. I don't know how they say it that way.
I think that's accurate.
This is French. And so into that, I put my organic plant-based protein powder to get my protein, usually 30 to 40 gram range. And I use a variety of plant-based proteins that are organically grown. You can buy them on Amazon, and I have a variety of them, about 5 or 6, and I mix it up so I don't get in a rut and have the exact same protein all the time. I put other things into that I like. Most of the time it's banana and blueberries, sometimes it's raspberry, sometimes it's blackberry, sometimes it's mandarin orange, sometimes it's grapefruit. A lot of it depends, unfortunately, on how much time I have before I have to get to clinic to be early and prep for the day. Sometimes I eat it in the car. And then for my lunches, I'm pretty steady about this, but it's a different thing. It's a variety of different whole grain breads. Sometimes it's 12 grain whole wheat with a bunch of seeds in it. Sometimes it's pumpernickel, sometimes it's rye, but it's never just white bread. That's too processed. That's going to get processed too quickly and go right to my liver and convert it to glycogen and fat and convert to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. That's why you're trying to avoid sugar. So on that bread, I put a variety of nut butters. All of my nut butters have no sugar added. So I will have peanut butter, no sugar, almond butter, cashew butter, pecan butter, even hazelnut butter. Many of these you can find at your local grocery store if you look. Whole Foods is great. They cost more. You buy it online from Amazon or wherever you want to shop. But then I usually put some lettuce in there for crunch, which a lot of people think, what? Peanut butter and lettuce? That's crazy. But I like it. It's crunchy. It's called the Mediterranean green diet. It's supposed to be healthier than just the Mediterranean diet, and is a good way to get fiber into my diet that I can't always get. Sometimes in the morning, I forgot, to my yogurt, I will add some other fiber sources. Some different seeds have fiber in them, like basil seeds, and some other seeds can do that. Then at night, that's when we usually will consider an animal protein source. Frequently, it's seafood for us. I like wild-caught everything. Farm-raised is okay, maybe, but most of the data suggests that the best nutrients are in the wild-caught things, real things that exist in nature. If salmon you think is too expensive, you can buy frozen salmon, 2 pounds of it, for about $12 at Walmart. And plenty of other sources are available. Chicken, poultry. If I'm going to have those things, I usually try to buy organic. My red meats, I usually eat bison and not just regular cow on account of the higher content of protein and the better health macronutrients and micronutrients in bison. I make bison burgers or bison steak, and it's usually all home cooked by me, so I can control things. When I cook, if I'm going to fry something, whether it's an egg or anything fried, I use avocado oil. It's got the highest smoke point. Olive oil is great for me. I have it in my salads. I usually have a salad with dinner, like at least half of all dinners, with a wide variety of different lettuces. I'm not buying the same bag of lettuce every time. Sometimes it's arugula, sometimes it's spinach, sometimes it's kale, sometimes it's collard greens. It's different all the time. Why? Variety is super important. It's one of the main things that people get wrong, is eating the same thing all the time over and over because they like it. Variety is really necessary for quality health. So back to the cooking, right? If I'm cooking bacon chicken in the oven, avocado oil doesn't boil or smoke, rather. It doesn't smoke until like 500 degrees Fahrenheit. So you can cook up to 450 degrees, and you don't have to worry about it carbonizing and turning black and having all of those mutagenistic carcinogens that are going to increase your risk of cancer. So for cooking, avocado oil. For flavor and quality of health, olive oil. and save the seed oils for things that have a specific recipe that call for it, but try to not cook with them because their smoke points are often too low and they can be harmful to you.
And then when you're traveling, how do you manage to still stay healthy?
Right, that's a great point. We definitely like to vacation. We like to get out of town and do fun things. So when I travel with my family, we really prefer to get the VRBO. It's easily the cheapest way because we have 6 people in the family, and there's plenty of grocery stores everywhere I've traveled, and I try to eat the similar type of healthy breakfast and lunch, and then we go out to dinner. I just try to make the right choices. I try to frequently get the seafood options or get a salad option to try and stay healthy when I'm on the road.
And you both mentioned some different protein powders that you like to use. It sounds like mostly in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, I do mine in the morning. You can do it at any time of the day. It just depends on what your eating pattern is. That's a time when I'm up and I need to get to work quickly, so I'm kind of scooting along fast. So it's convenient. But sometimes I'll do a protein at a different time of the day, a supplement. But yeah, it's really about customization of your routine and when you feel like you got a little more time or a little less time. So that's a convenient option for me at that time of the day. So, but there's nothing magic about morning protein supplements. So, yeah.
And is there one that you prefer over others, like a source?
Yeah, Sun Warrior is the brand that I use, and I just bought my first one from Walmart the other day because my shipment was delayed. I thought, let's see if Walmart can get it to me. They had it to me in less than a day, so it's a good backup plan. You need to use, or not Walmart, Amazon.
Yeah.
Amazon. Right.
Amazon. Walmart too.
Yeah, Walmart too. They're both options. But yeah, so Sun Warrior is the one I use, but I like what the doctor is saying about variety. That just makes sense. Period. So you can't go wrong with that.
Like different sources like whey protein versus faba bean versus pea protein. Is there a benefit to using one over another?
The whey is of high biological value. It scores a little higher than other proteins, which means its ability to turn on muscle protein synthesis is really high. But again, you're kind of splitting hairs here. You're comparing biological value of 94 to 91 to 80, 89, and so in the context of overall protein consumption, the message of plant predominant diets important, some animal proteins higher biological value, the whey is animal-based protein. I don't think you need to split hairs. You can be a vegan and be very healthy and not consume any animal products. You just have to be a little more attentive to the amount of plant protein you consume. So that's where a supplement can be handy. A little more concentration of protein than some of the other plant foods. So,
yeah, I agree with all that. I would like to add that people that have an all-carbohydrate breakfast have a little more problems with wakefulness and attentiveness and don't perform quite as well on mental acuity testing. Protein at breakfast is associated with better mental function and wakefulness. So for me, I don't want to get up and spend time cooking or eating leftover chicken. It's just so much easier and convenient for me to have my protein source in the morning be a powder. So that's really done out of convenience. I do enjoy cooking. I like the meals that I make for night, but that's when I have all the time I want. And if it takes an extra 10, 20 minutes to get it right, I have that time to spare. I don't have to worry about what's coming next. If it's already 6:30, it's no problem if I'm not eating till 7:30. I just take the time to make the food the way I like it.
This has been very interesting. I really appreciate all your insight. I think we're going to have to wrap it up pretty soon because I'm getting very hungry right now. So we'd like to go through our rapid fire question session right now. We'll start with Dr. Petsche and then we'll go to Richard, but then we'll reverse it, Richard to Dr. Petsche, because otherwise it's kind of unfair to give him a chance to, to think about it. So first question I have for you both is, what is your go-to workout song?
oh man.
That's a good question. I'm going to say Eye of the Tiger.
Oh, that's a great one. Richard, what would you think?
Recently, what it's been is a song by the name of 3 Steps from Hell. It was one of the theme songs in the Game of Thrones. Very inspiring to me, so very dramatic.
I would imagine that would be very dramatic.
Yeah.
Richard, what is your most irrational gym pet peeve?
Seeing people sit on a piece of equipment with their headphone on, looking at their phone, doing nothing, tying up a piece of equipment that someone else wants to use.
What
It doesn't happen in my gym, but other places.
I would say same answer, people tying up a piece of equipment for a prolonged period of time while not really getting in a good workout. That's super frustrating.
I would imagine. It's important to use it. It's good to promote that, but if you're just sitting, it's not a chair, right?
Right. Correct.
Yeah. All right, Dr. Petsche, would you rather do a spin class with Richard Simmons or power walk with Jane Fonda?
Oh, wow. Those are those are pretty good choices, but I'm going to go with Jane Fonda.
You know, I'm going to have to go with Richard Simmons because I met him, probably 15 years ago at a fitness convention, and I liked him. He was a fun guy, so.
He seems pretty energetic. Yeah, for sure. All right, what's one food you pretended to like because it was healthy?
Holy cow, growing up, there had to be some vegetable that I didn't like along the way as a young kid that I would just eat it because I thought my parents wanted me to eat it. So probably something like Brussels sprouts as a kid growing up, so.
Definitely my taste buds changed growing up. When I was a kid, I wouldn't say I was a picky eater, but there were things even as simple as like a green pepper that I didn't think tasted good. But definitely by high school, I grew up, and now I really enjoy green pepper.
Nice. If you could only keep one of these two food groups, would it be coffee or carbs?
I would keep carbs.
What do you think, Richard?
Well, I am a coffee lover, so I would take coffee and I would quickly look for the nearest carb.
What's the most unhinged fitness advice you've ever heard? Crazy, out there?
There's so much, it's unbelievable today. Maybe this idea that you have to eat a specific amount of a certain micronutrient. So people will say, I got to have exactly this many grams of carbs or exactly this fat or exactly this. And there's not truth to that. We've got some flexibility in terms of the actual composition of our diet. It's really what constitutes that. So as the doctor's been saying, whole food diet, plant predominant, makes sense. So there can be some variability in macros. There's not one lock-in macro ratio that is going to kill it for everyone. So you've got some variability there. So
if we're talking about just workouts and not nutrition, I think the craziest thing my patients do is when they work out to failure and they just keep doing that bicep curl until they cannot do one more bicep curl. And what's going to fail first? Their bicep muscle or their bicep tendon, and it's a great way to tear your bicep tendon and come see me for surgery.
So keep you busy, but probably not the best choice to do.
Not a good choice.
And maybe this next question will kind of follow up with some of those things. What's the weirdest health trend you've actually tried?
Actually tried myself. For a while there, I was a little bit too into the high-intensity interval training, where just doing, kind of like as a kid, training for sports, doing wind sprints. But as an adult, doing sprints on, say, a stationary bicycle or elliptical or the Nordic Track ski machine instead of more moderate zone 2-3 endurance training, just shooting for the top, zone 7 max cardiac, full output, minute at a time, rest on the floor panting for a while, then do it again. Yeah, for a while I got a little too into that.
I'm glad your heart didn't explode.
Thank you.
Richard, what would you say?
I think in high school, I was, of course, not well guided from a nutrition science standpoint. I was getting caught up on all of the 1980s, this supplement, that supplement. And there were some crazy supplements that I took along the way thinking that that was going to be the salvation to a successful life. And thankfully, those got put to rest and I moved forward. So,
do you believe in 10,000 steps a day, or is that a conspiracy made up by pedometers?
That's good.
I wouldn't say it's a conspiracy. I mean, should we be more physically active? Of course. Is 10,000 some magic point where the gates of heaven open up? Of course not. No. So you can go from what the average American does, which I'm not even sure what that baseline is, but it's very low. Maybe it's a couple thousand, if that, and you can build on that and see incremental gains in health outcomes over time. But I think the 10,000 is a little bit too prescriptive to say, boy, I've got to crush 10,000 or else. No, you need to be more active. You need to do some strength training. You need to eat a little better, sleep a little better. So I wouldn't get too bent out of shape about 2,000, but I would certainly suggest more activity for the average American for sure. Yeah.
What do you think, Dr. Petsche? Conspiracy?
Definitely not a conspiracy. It's part of the active lifestyle. Eat healthy, sleep healthy, get some exercise. It's part of that. And 10,000 obviously is related to, we have 10 fingers, we have 10 toes, we have a number system that's base 10, and it's round, and it's easy to remember. But it actually does work, and it motivates some people. So I think it's solid.
Okay. And then just a last question. If runners can take away one thing from this conversation that we've had so far, what would it be?
My answer, kind of same answer. Eat healthy, well-rounded, good variety, Mediterranean diet if you can. Eat real food, mostly plants, not too much. We didn't talk about it, but get regular sleep. Try to keep the same bedtime, the same wake-up time. Take care of your body. Watch out for toxins. Not too much. If you can, minimize to no alcohol. And don't use nicotine for anything, please. That's what you could take away.
Richard, what would you say?
Those are great pillars. I think from a running standpoint, runners obviously think about running. It makes sense. I need to run to be a runner. Makes sense. Historically, they haven't thought about resistance exercise. They haven't thought about strength training. So when a runner says, I want to run faster, part of that should be, am I paying attention to my muscular system, keeping it strong, healthy, injury resistant? Because not only can I run faster, I can do more with lower risk of injury. So just making sure that's piece of the running program. So.
And then just to somewhat wrap it up, bring it all together, what do you think a runner should do to improve their nutrition and improve their overall health?
What's the one thing that matters most, you mean?
Just in general.
He just gave you a great answer. How to live your life.
Yeah, he wants you to give him one.
Right. Well, of course, strength training is probably an overlooked piece because people don't think I got to go lift weights to run. Son of a gun.
All right, I have a good answer because he's struggling. It's not nutritional. The most common thing I see in runners is when they go from this level to that level too quickly. And it's common. From couch to 5K, stretch that thing out. Couch to 5K should happen over a couple of months. And the progression should be relatively linear. Or couch to half marathon. That should be like half a year. And don't, 2 months into it, all of a sudden, you think you're running 13 miles. It's just not smart. And you're going to get an overuse tendinitis. You're going to get an overuse stress fracture. Set realistic goals and don't overdo it.
That makes sense. So that makes me think that I do some work with Dick Pond Athletics. They've got great programs that do just that. They bring people along slowly and gradually in a group setting with a coach, support, guidance, accountability, show up for your weekly runs. So that all lends to that mindset of just let's build up gradually and work towards a goal that's doable and bite-sized. Yeah.
And then what do you think the importance of lean muscle mass? We talked a little bit about that just to kind of circle around to that.
I'll drop the mic on this one. So last year in their journal Circulation, the American Heart Association published a position paper on resistance exercise, strength training as it relates to cardiovascular disease. They said not only is it necessary to prevent heart disease, it's also necessary to treat heart disease. In 2007, they published a paper in the journal Annals of Internal Medicine saying that all cardiac rehab programs should use strength training. Now, most of them do nowadays. You go to have your chest cut open, you have heart surgery, they're putting you on strength training as part of the programming afterwards. And so now they're saying, look, if you're alive and you haven't had a heart attack, start strength training today because this is going to help you prevent heart disease.
So lean muscle mass added to the older adults has been shown to not only help with cardiovascular disease, but it can prevent heart attack, it can prevent stroke, it lowers your odds of dementia, it lowers your odds of cancer, it is good for you in every way. And recent studies done to investigate whether resistance training was beneficial or not have shocked researchers. They've even designed an entire study to show how strength training wasn't going to be any good at helping people sleep better. They were out to prove that you had to do cardio. Like when I was a kid, it was all cardio. Yeah, but that's not cardio. I mean, cardio is good. It's part of what I do. But resistance training people had better quality sleep, an extra 45 minutes of sleep, than the people that did cardio only in a randomized controlled prospective study. So, yeah, it's a huge thing. It's often neglected, and we ought to have more people like Richard out in the community getting people in shape.
I agree, which is why I'm so glad you were here today, Richard, and Dr. Petsche as well. I've learned so much today about muscle mass, about nutrition, and the importance of good nutrition, and how to incorporate that into my daily life. And I hope the team has learned that as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. I will see you next time on Ortho Out Loud. The This podcast features insights from orthopedic specialists at Fox Valley Orthopedics. While we hope you find these discussions helpful, we are not giving you medical advice or providing opinions about your specific medical conditions or concerns. The views expressed on this podcast are not a substitute for personalized medical advice. If you have questions about a medical condition or treatment, please consult your own trusted healthcare professional. Never ignore professional medical advice or delay seeking care because of something you heard on this podcast. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Fox Valley Orthopedics or its affiliated organizations. Any decisions made based on the information provided in this podcast are done so at your own risk, and Fox Valley Orthopedics disclaims and is not responsible for any actions taken as a result of this content. If you are experiencing a medical emergency, please call 911 and seek immediate medical attention.